So one of the things that we probably know is going to happen during Trump's next term, and I know Trump, but trust me, this has a British spin to it, so don't worry about that. Obviously, is the dream, and of course our Conservatives as well. It's getting rid of government waste. You know, getting rid of all these sort of regulations. But we've had 14 years of well, you know, conservative government. How many regulations have they actually gotten rid of? Even when in 2019 they went and won a massive landslide, could have gotten rid of all these EU regulations. Did they? No, they barely got rid of any. Hardly any they got rid of. And the few that they did get rid of could be easily just be brought back. You know? So there is going to be a test, certainly in America. It'll be very interesting to see what Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy do, of course. But a lot of people are saying both Musk and Vivek have basically been promoted to effectively the kids' table, given a non-governmental department in order to do stuff. And what that will actually do or look like, well, who knows? We'll probably find out. However, it is worth, I think, looking at this, because this has also been a long, long dream of people like Badenoch, people like Farage, who say, we want to go and take a huge knife to the state and cut out all these governmental departments that they never ever talk about and don't want to have a talk about, which I think is the key thing here, is where you get them on all every time. What actually getting rid of those governmental departments actually means. Because we certainly know in America, US Department of Education, that might not be there. That might not be there for too much longer. Again, we'll see what happens in Trump's term, but maybe something else you might see for Farage and Badenoch, maybe even say that they want to do as well. So before we get on, of course, into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the One Today's link called Buy Me Coffee, or you can all buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, there's the Pony Club down below. And of course, it's Wednesday, so there is a new Pony Club video to all the Pony Clubbers and, of course, the Patreon members. And I am going away today, so I will be making recording some videos and etc. So you will be sort of seeing me wearing the same t-shirt for the next couple of days. Again, purely because I am going away. I will be hopefully, maybe fingers crossed, trying to do a live stream where I am, but I'm going to be up in somewhere the wilds, so I don't know if I'll have any signal to be able to do it, but we'll find out on Saturday morning. So, as always, let's crack on then into this. So this coming from the East Anglia Bylines with the title of Farage and Badenoch taking a knife to the deep state. So, GB News, of course, reporting on comments made by Nigel Farage and how Elon Musk might take to task of the reforming the government, of course, in the USA. And of course, how such ideas might be replicated over here. So this is what he had to say in this tweet, in this tweet that he put out. So this is the sexy bit. Although Farage calling something sexy, I got shudders as well, don't worry. Elon comes in and takes a knife to the deep state, just like when he bought Twitter and he sacked 80% of the staff. Yeah, remember how well that worked out? Remember the point where even though he sacked 80% of the staff, they had a problem where people couldn't actually get in the building because the people who weren't sacked, their key cards weren't working, and they'd sacked the people who were responsible for that. So then they had to rehire those people so that they could get back in the building, only to then sack them later. Yeah. Good job. Good decision on that by Elon. Anyway, Farage continues. There is, of course, going to be a mass of layoffs, whole departments closing, and I'm hoping and praying that that is what the blueprint for what we will do on our side of the pond, because that's what Reform UK believes in, that we are an bureaucratized and none of it works. This is assault on the bureaucratic state, and that is the thing that is really exciting. They'll all be gone. They'll all be fired. Why do we need Whitehall to run all these useless, ghastly, Marxist universities have all become madrasas of Marxism? The whole thing is appalling. No, they really haven't. It's because mostly universities are in the job of educating people, and most educated people realize the disasters of what, you know, things like Farage and Trump and etc. and the Conservatives want to do. Ultimately, doesn't look good when, you know, you've got all this educated populace. But, you know, having educated populace is a good thing. We should be sending more people to university. Firing all these people, once again, who are you going to fire? What departments are you going to get rid of? That will have big consequences for the day-to-day operations and running of government, because that gets a lot of experience. It means departments cannot run properly. It will have a lot of very negative consequences. And if they do go ahead with that, you will see the negative consequences come in over time very slowly. You will start to see this. And methinks both Farage and Badenoch might stop talking about this if it proves to be a monumental disaster, which a lot of people are saying it is very likely going to be. So let's get into this thing. Which departments are going to go? So I always find comments of this both very bizarre and troubling. As I have now I have to be able to now to resist the temptation of laughing at the person who makes them, because of how they think that whole departments of the government might just be closed down baffles me. Of course, which departments is he going to close? The NHS, the Department of Work and Pensions, Education, Defence, Revenue maybe? Or is it going to be the environment? As a result of which flooding will become even more commonplace, which is, of course, going to make him immensely popular. Or is it agriculture? Exactly. All these governmental departments, which one are you going to close? And the thing is, depending what you close, is going to have consequences, massive consequences on this. So I could keep going, but the point of this is that I can think of no government department that should be shut. Farage, of course, might respond by suggesting that the arts of media and culture, but I have a very strong suspicion that there would be outrage from many Tories if he were to do so, because the evidence is that the department in question does, in fact, quite heavily subsidize the wealthy. Again, that's quite true. So there's going to be a lot of reaction why you might not want to close that department down. Alternatively, he may, of course, suggest that he would like to close the international development. But, of course, that department has already gone. And the reason why we did so to the international development is that it's nothing to do with more effective of keeping migrants away from this country than, of course, the aid that we supply to countries that they currently live. It would be very deeply ironic if he did not understand that. So what does he want to get actually rid of? I forgot to mention, of course, transport or anything related to energy, climate change, devolved administrations in the UK. What is he suggesting that should go? Alternatively, is he just, as usual, talking a lot of nonsense? And anyway, why, of course, Musk as an example? He might have sacked up to 80% of Twitter staff when he took over the company, but as a consequence, he very badly damaged the business model and simultaneously destroyed the value of the investment that had been made in that company by the others. And bear in mind, Twitter has fallen off a rock completely. And even after the election of Donald Trump, you have seen numbers not only on Blue Sky, but Threads as well, skyrocket because of this. And I am telling people now, you know, make sure you get on Threads, make sure you get on Blue Sky. We don't know which one is going to win out eventually, but one of them will do. We'll see which one wins out, but there is going to be a fight now between those two social media companies. And we've seen these fights play out before in the past. Maybe we'll reach an equilibrium where both will survive. Maybe one will end up dominating over the other. We just don't know which one will survive at the moment in time. So, of course, why, of course, even ask these questions? I do, because there is, of course, very little doubt that the commentators of this sort are going to come up of this over and over again in the coming months and years. It is even more likely now that Trump, of course, is becoming president of the US, and of course with Badenoch leading the Tories, that it's certainly that a party will obviously now be very dedicated to the idea that the government must be shrunk. Yep. I would not be surprised about that either. I think that is very right as well. I think you are going to see Tories become dedicated to a mantra that the government is too big and it has to be shrunk. And then this is when all of the parties get to lay into them and say, well, okay, if you're going to shrink the size of the government, what are you actually going to do? What does that mean in practice? Which department? Do you realize by doing that, there will be consequences? So, of course, remember, she did not deliver on that promise as a minister, nor, of course, did her colleagues. Instead, they misspent that with any intention of undermining the credibility of the government, but without ever actually reducing the overall level of spending. If she or Farage were actually to promote something very different, then we need to get used to asking precisely what it is they mean by these very provocative comments. That is very well be made clear unless we and the media do so to perpetuate the idea that the government is wasteful is wasteful when generation after generation of Tory politicians have never found any serious ways of reducing the scope of government activities or even responsibilities, despite the perpetual claims that this is their objective. These people are charlatans, and we need to point this out. This is why we need to know what they are saying. And bear in mind, I've had a lot of people say, oh, why are you still covering the Tories? Why are you still covering them? Because you never know what might happen in the future. You never know that, let's say, next election, it ends up being a conservative reform coalition. Yeah, we have to know what they are saying now. We have to know what their plans are. You have to be very well aware and be able to call them out, even prior before this, so that they know, that they can't get away with this nonsense. But that is what we have to sort of prepare for. And I think this is very worrying when they do start saying this type of thing. You already had Badenoch saying, oh, civil servants are so bad, 5 to 10% of them, which is about, 5,000 civil servants should be arrested because they're bad. I really wish someone would challenge Kemi Badenoch on that. Like, next time she's on air, challenge her on that. And basically get her to say, if there is a civil servant that she knows is so bad, why isn't she reporting them to police? Name that civil servant on air. Name that crime, Kemi Badenoch. What crime is going on in the civil service that is so bad you have not reported it to the police? They are, and they need to be called out, because otherwise, look at Venezuela. Again, probably we should look at finding something on that and what's going on, because you had their madman president slashing all these departments. I should really go and find out if there's anyone's done any stories on what have been like the consequences of getting rid of these departments for Venezuela. I wouldn't be too shocking to surprise. Guess what? It's bad consequences. Ultimately, if it is true that Musk does have any power, we'll see if he does have any power or not in this administration. Like I say, we'll find out probably very quickly or not. Yeah, we will probably see a lot of stuff go. Expect Schedule F to probably be revisited, and we'll see what happens. But oh boy, you are going to see what happens and what the consequences are when you really do go after reducing the size of the state. But bear in mind, historically, when you look at states, they haven't got smaller, they've got bigger, because governments have had to do more and more things, which means expanding the size of the state to do those things. You need to do these things. That has been the historical path that governments have always gone in. But of course, it's been the clarion call from conservatives for years, decades even, that this governments are too big. But when they've got into power, as the Conservatives have done for the past 14 years, they never cut the size of the government. They never did anything like that. So we'll see what happens in America over the next couple of years. But make no mistake, Badenoch and Farage will probably use this as a siren call. of some sort of description. And, you know, they need to be sort of called out by the media saying, well, okay, what are you going to cut? You know, which department are you going to go after? What exactly do you mean when you say reduce the size of the state? What you know, what does that mean for the consequences of that department? They should be sort of forced to answer these questions when they say these things. There needs to be follow-up questions on these things to challenge them, that they can't just get away with saying it and then it's just in the ether that they're going to reduce the size of the state without fully explaining what that actually means they intend to do. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do leave a comment down below, as always, and we'll see you all next time.